The Alpha Prince did not scream like a child waking from a nightmare. He screamed like something ancient had opened its mouth inside his blood. The sound tore through the Moon Palace at midnight, traveling under ironwood doors, through vaulted corridors, beneath the ribs of black stone arches carved with the victories of dead kings. It shook the silver chandeliers until the candles trembled blue. It made the wolf banners along the walls snap in a wind no one felt. Far below, in the guard halls and kitchens and frost-veiled courtyards, every wolf who heard it dropped to one knee. Not in loyalty, in pain. The Moon Palace had been built to make lesser creatures remember their place. Its towers rose like spears against the winter sky, their windows narrow as arrow slits, their walls veined with pale quartz that caught the moonlight and held it like trapped bone. The air inside was always cold, always watching. Tonight it carried too many scents. Noble perfume thick with rose oil and ambergris, wet fur beneath ceremonial cloaks, hot candle wax, fear, sweat carefully hidden under silk, and beneath all of it, the copper-dark bite of royal blood. Elara Vane smelled none of it. That was the first thing the court always remembered about her. Not her hands, which had stitched battlefield wounds by firelight. Not her eyes, which noticed what trained healers missed. Not the quiet way she endured insult without lowering herself to answer it. Only the absence. Scentless. In the wolf kingdoms, scent was not merely a trace upon the skin. It was lineage, pack, rank, desire, oath, a living testimony that somewhere beneath bone and breath, a wolf waited for the moon. To have no scent was worse than being low-born. It was to be socially dead while still breathing, a ghost among the living. So when the guards dragged Elara through the silver doors of the royal bedchamber, the gathered court looked at her the way people looked at a grave that had learned to walk. High Luna Merwin stood at the foot of Prince Rowan's bed, immaculate in a gown of moon-white silk. Her pale hair was braided with pearls, her hands folded lightly before her, every inch of her composed with the discipline of a woman who had survived court politics by never bleeding where anyone could see. Beside her, royal healer Varos held a silver bowl of crushed fever root and lamb's blood, his robes embroidered with the crescent seal of the old healing houses. Neither of them looked desperate. That frightened Elara more than panic would have. Prince Rowan writhed against a bed large enough for a king, his small body swallowed by white furs and ceremonial silk. He could not have seen more than 7 winters. Dark hair clung to his damp brow. Blood had seeped from the base of his skull into the pillow beneath him, staining the embroidered black wolf of House Draven until the crest seemed to be drowning. The room was full of suffering. Not only his. Elara heard it all. That was the curse of her gift. Sickness was never silent to her. It lived in bodies as sound. An old council lord near the hearth carried a lung rot that rattled like dry seeds in a gourd. A noble woman by the pillars had a womb sickness that hummed low and mournful. One guard's shoulder, badly set after an old break, clicked beneath his armor with every heartbeat. Varos's own blood carried the bitter hiss of too many sleepless nights and too much ambition. But Prince Rowan's blood rang above them all. Thin, silver, wrong, like frost cracking over a grave. "This is what desperation has brought us to?" Merwin asked. Her voice was soft enough to seem merciful. That was how Elara knew it was meant to wound. A scentless omega from the outer kennels. The words moved through the chamber in a ripple of silk and teeth. Scentless, outer kennels, omega. Elara felt the familiar old shame rise, not hot anymore, but cold and precise. Shame had been beaten into her so young it no longer startled her. It simply arrived, took its place behind her ribs, and waited to see whether she would survive another room. She did not bow. She looked at the prince. "When does the pain begin?" she asked. Varos turned slowly, as if the fact of her voice offended him. "The prince's condition is under royal study." "That was not my question." Several nobles inhaled. Merwin's mouth curved faintly. Not a smile. A note taken. Varos set the silver bowl down with exquisite care. The episodes occur at midnight, when the moon reaches its highest point. We believe an old curse has fixed itself to his blood. No, Elara said. The court went still. Elara stepped closer to the bed. The ringing inside Rowan's veins sharpened. It did not rise from his chest, his throat, or his belly. It sang from behind him, beneath him. Her gaze lowered to the pillow. Pale blue silk. Silver-threaded crest. A sacred thing, made for a royal child's sleep. Too beautiful to be innocent. It does not follow the moon, Elara said. It follows pressure. Marvin tilted her head. Pressure? A few nobles smiled. They expected foolishness now. They wanted it. A scentless girl embarrassing herself before the court would soothe them more than any cure. The pillow, Elara said. Varos's expression hardened. Careful. Rowan screamed again. This time, Elara saw it. As his head sank deeper into the silk, 3 fresh beads of blood appeared beneath his hairline. Tiny, deliberate, placed. Elara reached for him. Varos caught her wrist. His grip was not frantic. It was controlled, punishing. You will not put unregistered hands on the Alpha Prince. Elara looked down at his fingers. Release me. You are in a royal chamber, carrying no scent record, no pack oath, and no verified bloodline. And yet I am the only one in this room listening to the child instead of the law. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Varos's eyes cooled. Before he could answer, Rowan's trembling fingers caught Elara's sleeve. His eyes opened, unfocused and wet with pain. It bites, he whispered. Elara bent toward him. What bites, little prince? His lips barely moved. The moon in my pillow. Elara did not ask permission. She tore free of Varos, reached into her worn healer's satchel, and drew out a crescent knife with a bone handle darkened by use. The blade was small, meant for cutting bandages, roots, and corrupted flesh. Merwin's eyes flicked to it. Not fear. Opportunity. Elara drove the knife into the pillow seam and ripped. Silk split with a sound like a quiet scream. For one breath, nothing happened. Then the inner stuffing collapsed, and dozens of silver thorns spilled across the marble floor. They fell delicately, almost beautifully. Each one was thin as a needle and curved like a wolf's claw. Their tips were coated in a moon-pale resin that smoked when exposed to the air. One thorn rolled into a spill of water near the servant's basin. The marble hissed black. No one laughed. Elara stared at the thorns, and the ringing in Rowan's blood became unbearable. Moon poison, she said. Varus did not move. Merwin did. She took one step toward the thorns, looked down, and then lifted her gaze to the court with devastating calm. There will be no one touching that evidence. Elara looked at her. Merwin's face had become a mask of lawful grief. This Omega entered the royal chamber carrying an unregistered blade, Merwin said. She cut open royal property without authorization. She contaminated the prince's bedding, exposed unknown substances before witnesses, and now conveniently claims to have discovered an assassination attempt. Elara went cold. Merwin did not need to scream. She had the law. Varos stepped beside her, voice smooth now. High Luna Merwin is correct. By palace statute, an unscented outsider cannot testify in matters of royal blood without pack verification. Her actions have destroyed the chain of custody. The chain of custody? Elara repeated. Her voice was quiet. Dangerously so. A child was being murdered in his sleep, and you have made yourself central to the discovery, Merwin said. How heroic. The trap closed around her with the soft efficiency of a silk cord tightening at the throat. Guards seized Elara's arms. She did not fight them. Not yet. Move him away from the pillow, she said. No one obeyed. Her gaze snapped to Varos. If one thorn is still embedded beneath the inner lining, every breath he takes is another measure of poison. Varos's jaw tightened. That was answer enough. Then Rowan reached for her again. His small hand slid from the bed and caught her wrist. Blood from his hairline smeared across her skin. The chamber changed. The candles guttered blue. The silver thorns trembled against the marble. And the prince's blood, red when it touched her, turned silver. Living silver, bright as moonlight trapped beneath ice. It spread along Elara's veins in branching lines, forming a mark she had never seen but felt somewhere deeper than memory. Rowan's breathing eased. She heard it, he whispered. The doors exploded inward. A pressure dropped over the room so violently that several nobles staggered. The air went thin. Every wolf lowered its head before the presence that entered, not because it chose obedience, but because instinct had already surrendered. Alpha King Kael Draven stood in the doorway. Snow clung to his black armor. A wolf fur cloak hung from one shoulder. Blood marked his gauntlet, though whether it was his or another man's, no one dared ask. His eyes were the color of moonlit steel, and the force of his aura filled the chamber like a storm pressing against glass. Elara felt it strike her body. Kneel, it commanded without words. Submit. Break. She nearly did. Every survival instinct screamed at her to lower her gaze, but Rowan's fingers were still around her wrist. His breath was still shallow, and the thorns still smoked on the floor. So Elara remained standing. Kael's gaze moved to his son, to the torn pillow, to the thorns, to Marwyn, to Varus, then to Elara. "Who cut open my son's pillow?" he asked. Merwyn stepped forward with perfect sorrow. "My king, this girl violated royal protocol and contaminated." I asked who cut it. Elara lifted her chin. "I did." The full weight of Kael's aura turned on her. It felt like stone laid upon her lungs. "Why?" "Because your son told me the moon was biting him." A flicker crossed his face. Not belief. Not mercy. Interest sharpened into suspicion. "You expect me to accept the word of a scentless Omega over my royal healer and High Luna?" "No," Elara said. "I expect you to look at the floor." The court seemed to stop breathing. Kael's eyes narrowed. Elara forced herself to continue. "Look at the thorns. Look at the burned marble. Look at the blood beneath his hairline. Then decide whether your pride is more useful than evidence." For a moment, no one moved. Then Kael crossed the room. The guards released Elara before he reached her. He knelt beside Rowan, touched 2 fingers to the boy's throat, and for half a heartbeat the king vanished. Only the father remained, terrified, furious, human. Rowan's eyes opened. Her blood made it quiet. He breathed. Kael rose slowly. He took Elara's wrist. His grip was iron. The silver mark flared beneath his touch. A growl rolled out of him before he could stop it, low and ancient, and every noble in the chamber went white. His wolf had answered her. Kael stared at the silver lines beneath her skin. "You have no scent." "I know. No wolf. So I have been told. No bloodline." Elara glanced at the thorns, the boy, the court already sharpening knives behind their eyes. "Then perhaps your kingdom has mistaken silence for emptiness." Kael leaned closer. His aura pressed harder, trying to crush the truth out of her. Elara did not kneel. Not this time. The Alpha King's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "Tell me, little healer, why does my son's blood answer to yours?" Kael Draven held Elara's wrist, as if the truth had been carved beneath her skin. The silver mark still burned where Prince Rowan's blood had touched her, branching along her veins like moonlight trapped under ice. Every breath the boy took made it pulse. Every shiver in his small body made it tighten. "Answer me," Kael said. Elara looked past him to the bed. "Your son is still poisoned." "That was not my question." "It should be." A hush fell over the chamber. Even the nobles seemed afraid of the space between them. Kael's grip did not bruise her. That made it worse. It was controlled, deliberate. A king measuring how much force was necessary before pain became confession. "You stand beside my son's blood," he said, "with poison thorns at your feet and a mark no scentless Omega should carry. Choose your next words carefully." Elara's throat tightened. Scentless Omega. The words struck the old wound because they were not shouted. They were simply accepted as fact. If you question me while he dies, she said, you will have a corpse with royal blood and perfect protocol. For the first time, Kael looked away from her. Prince Rowan whimpered. That small sound broke the court's silence more effectively than a command. Elara moved toward the bed. Varos stepped into her path. The prince has been under my care for 13 nights, and he has screamed for 13 nights. The younger healers lowered their eyes. High Luna Merwin did not. She stood in pale silk near the bed, lovely and still, her grief polished enough for witnesses. My king, she said softly, we must consider what has happened. This girl entered with an unregistered blade. She cut royal bedding without permission. She touched the prince, exposed unknown substances, and now her blood reacts to his. If she is innocent, she is unfortunate. If she is not, she is a weapon placed precisely where our fear would invite her. Silk over a garrote wire. Elara almost admired the elegance of it. Merwin had not called her guilty. She had made innocence sound dangerous. Kael's eyes returned to Elara. Can you help him? Yes. Can you prove you did not cause this? No. A murmur moved through the court. Elara held his star. But I can prove the poison came from the pillow. Kael stepped aside. Then do it. Varos's mouth tightened, but he did not interfere when Elara bent over Rowan. The boy's hair was damp with sweat and blood. She parted the curls at the base of his skull and found the wounds. 7 punctures, not 3. 7 tiny marks in a crescent pattern, shallow enough to be dismissed, precise enough to be designed. Her stomach turned cold. This was not meant to kill him quickly, she said. Kael's face emptied. Explain. Elara cleaned the wound with warm water, ignoring Varus's sharp inhale when she refused the moon salts. The thorns were set deep inside the cushion. A light touch would find nothing, but a child's head sinking into the pillow for hours would press them upward, one by one. Enough pain to mimic a curse, enough poison to weaken him night after night, enough suffering to make all of you hunt ghosts while the murderer stood in the room. She took her bone tweezers from her satchel. Rowan trembled. Kael placed one hand over his son's chest. Hold him still, Elara said. I am. No anger. Only iron. Elara followed the thin, screaming note beneath Rowan's skin. There, beneath the smallest puncture, something silver glinted. She slid the tweezers in, caught the broken thorn tip, and drew it out. The thorn smoked in the air. Black resin clung to its point. Rowan exhaled. The entire room seemed to exhale with him. Dark blood welled from the wound. Then silver. Sickly silver. Tarnished, unlike the living brightness still burning across Elara's wrist. Kael saw it. So did Merwin. For the first time, one finger moved against her white gown. Only one, Elara noticed. Kael turned back to her. What are you? The question hurt more than it should have. Not who. What? I am a healer. You hear poison in blood. I hear many things I wish I did not. Do not evade me. I am not evading you. I am telling you the only answer I have. Kael stepped closer. This time, his silence was a blade between them. You think I will be satisfied with that? No, Elara said. I think you are a king accustomed to answers kneeling before you. His eyes sharpened. She should have stopped. She did not. But I have lived 23 years beneath wolves stronger than me. Pressure does not make me confess. It only makes me accurate. The court went utterly still. Then Merwin's voice returned, soft as falling snow. If her blood quiets the prince's poison, she must be contained. Benevolence and danger often wear the same face when forbidden bloodlines are involved. Kael looked at Rowan, whose breathing had finally steadied. Then at Elara. You will remain in the palace. No. The word struck the room like a thrown knife. Then Kael's power broke loose. Not a gesture, not a shout. A sudden collapse of air. Candles bent sideways. Servants dropped to their knees. The wolves in the chamber lowered their heads with a sound like armor settling before war. Elara swayed, but she did not kneel. Kael stopped inches from her. "If I wish to make you a prisoner," he said, "you would already be locked in silver beneath the East Tower. Am I accused? Not yet. Am I free? Not yet." There it was. A verdict without a trial. Elara looked toward the guards already moving to the doors. "This is protection, then?" Karl's Chase held hers. "For the moment." "No," she said quietly. "This is a prettier cage." Something dark moved through his expression. He leaned close enough that only she could hear. "Perhaps, but it is the only cage standing between you and a court that has already decided you are easier to burn than understand." Elara looked at Rowan's sleeping face, then at Merwin's perfect, merciless calm. And deep beneath the moon palace, something ancient howled again. Kael carried Elara out of the banquet hall himself. That was the part the court would remember. Not the poisoned wine burning black veins into the marble. Not the obedience collar snapping in his fist. Not the way Prince Rowan had nearly lifted the silver cup to his mouth. They would remember the Alpha King holding a scentless girl against his armor, while every noble house in the north watched him do it. Elara hated that. She hated the whispers following them through the corridor. She hated the eyes turning away too late. She hated the red burn around her throat where the collar had kissed her skin and tried to make her kneel. Most of all, she hated how safe his arms felt. Kael said nothing until they reached the old east wing. He dismissed the guards with one look. The door closed behind them. Only then did he set her down near the blue fire. Elara stepped away at once. Her knees almost failed, but she caught the edge of the table before he could catch her. Kael saw it. He did not move. Good. Let him learn that not every wound wanted his hands. His eyes lowered to her throat. "Who ordered the collar?" Elara laughed once. It came out rough. "Your court. I asked for a name. You know the name. Marwyn." Elara touched the burn at her throat. "She did not force it on me. That was the clever part. She gave me a choice that was not a choice. If I refused, I was dangerous. If I accepted, I was beneath them." Kael turned toward the door. Elara knew that look. A king choosing violence and calling it justice. "Do not," she said. He stopped. Slowly, he looked back. "No, no." The word still frightened her. It also steadied her. "If you storm into Merwin's rooms now, she wins. She will weep before the council. She will say the moonborn girl has poisoned your judgment. She will say you turned against your own Luna because my blood touched your sons." Kael's face hardened. "She nearly killed you in front of my court." "No," Elara said. "She nearly made you believe I tried to kill Rowan in front of your court. That was the point." Silence. The blue fire cracked between them. Elara forced herself to breathe through the ache in her throat. The wine was not meant to finish him. Not tonight. It was meant to wake the collar. To make the runes react to my blood. To make me look unstable. Forbidden. Violent. "The poison obeyed the collar," Kael said. "No, the collar obeyed the poison." His eyes sharpened. "That means the runes were prepared before the banquet. Someone knew I would wear it. Someone knew Rowan would be handed that cup. Someone knew I would hear the poison and move." Kael's voice dropped. "Marvin plans. And Varos builds." The name hung in the chamber like a blade. Royal Healer Varus. The man who had treated Rowan for 13 nights. The man who had prepared the ceremonial pillow. The man whose face had changed when the silver thorns spilled onto the floor. For the first time, Elara saw something colder than rage move through Kael. Recognition. The terrible kind. The kind that came when a man realized betrayal had been standing close enough to touch his child. A knock came at the door. Kael's hand went to his sword. "Enter." A young healer stepped inside. Not Varos, a thin woman with dark braids and frightened eyes. "My king," she whispered. "What is it?" "Prince Rowan has woken." Elara straightened. Kael moved toward the door. The healer swallowed. He is asking for her. Here. Not the witch. Not the threat. Not the scentless girl. Here. Kael looked at Elara. You can barely stand. Then walk slowly. Elara, your son is asking for me. Something shifted in his face. Not trust. Not softness. A decision made against instinct. He opened the door. Stay beside me. Elara passed him. No, you stay beside me. The healer's eyes widened. Kael said nothing. But he followed. The royal healing chamber had been stripped bare after the banquet. No ceremonial pillows, no moon salts, no silver bowls left unattended. Every cup had been sealed, every blanket burned. Guards stood along the walls with drawn blades. Prince Rowan lay small and pale beneath a black fur coverlet. When Elara entered, his eyes opened. He smiled, weakly. You came back, he whispered. Elara went to him at once. I said I would listen. His fingers found hers. Cold, too cold. The poison inside him had quieted, but it had not left. It hid beneath his blood like a snake beneath snow. Rowan looked at Kael, then back at Elara. The lady in white told me not to tell. The room went still. Kael's voice was almost soundless. What lady? Rowan's gaze moved toward the moonlit window. She said if I told, father would send me away like the scentless children. Elara felt the words strike Kael harder than any blade. His face did not change, but every guard in the room lowered his eyes. Rowan's small hand tightened around hers. She said the moon bites bad children who make kings weak. Elara bent closer. Rowan, did she give you the pillow? His eyes filled with tears. No. Who did? The boy looked toward the door. At that exact moment, royal healer Varos entered. He stopped when every face turned toward him. For one breath, his mask slipped. Then it returned. Smooth. Professional. Offended. My king, Varos said, bowing. I was told the prince had woken. I came at once. Kael did not move. Did you give my son the ceremonial pillow? Varos blinked once. Yes, at High Luna Merwin's request. It was woven with sleep charms approved by temple law. Who prepared the charms? Varos's eyes flicked to Elara. Only for an instant. But she saw enough. I did, he said. As royal healer. Kael took one step toward him. Elara caught his sleeve. Not to save Varos. To stop Kael from killing the only man who might know how the poison worked. Kael looked down at her hand. Do not ask mercy for him. I am asking you to be useful before you are terrifying. Varos's eyes narrowed. Elara turned to him. What poison did you use? Varos's expression chilled. I will not answer village superstition. The resin smoked in air, Elara said. It burned marble black, but did not blacken flesh at once. It caused pain, tremors, silvering of the blood, and delayed collapse. That is not common moon poison. It is bound to triggers. Varos said nothing. Elara stepped closer. The pillow used pressure. The wine used the color. What triggers the rest? For the first time, Varos did not answer quickly. Kael noticed. So did every guard. Elara's voice lowered. You did not build a poison with one blade. You built a lock with several keys. Varos looked at Kael. My king, she is turning panic into accusation. Elara smiled without warmth. Pressure does not make me confess, healer. It makes me accurate. Varos went still. Because he understood. She had found the hidden mechanism. Kael's voice was soft. Seize him. 2 guards moved at once. Varos did not fight. That frightened Elara more than resistance would have. He allowed them to bind his wrists in ceremonial silver. He even smiled as if the room had finally stepped where he wanted it. My king, he said, if you imprison your royal healer while your heir remains poisoned, the council will call it instability. The council may call it whatever helps them sleep. And when the boy worsens, Elara's blood went cold. Varos looked only at her now. There are old poisons, little ghost. that punish interference. Rowan gasped. His body arched from the bed. Silver veins flared along his throat. Elara reached for him, but the sound hit her first. The poison inside his blood woke screaming. Not from the pillow, not from the wine, from the mark on Elara's wrist. The living silver beneath her skin ignited so brightly it lit the chamber. Varos laughed once as the guards dragged him back. There is the third key. Kael caught Rowan before the boy convulsed off the bed. Elara stared at her burning wrist. The truth unfolded in terror. The poison had not only been made to kill the prince, it had been made to use her blood to finish the work. Then the chamber doors opened. High Luna Merwin stood outside, surrounded by council guards. Her face was pale with perfect sorrow. "My king," she said softly, "step away from the girl." Rowan screamed. Elara's wrist blazed, and every blade in the room turned toward her. Blades turned toward Elara before Prince Rowan finished screaming. Silver-edged spears lowered. Wolf guards shifted between her and the bed as if the burning mark on her wrist had become the true poison in the room. Elara stood frozen beside Rowan's bed. The living silver beneath her skin blazed so brightly it painted the walls in pale fire. Across the chamber, Rowan convulsed in Kael's arms, silver-black veins crawling up his throat. High Luna Merwin stood in the doorway, surrounded by council guards. Her face was pale, perfect, sorrowful. "My king," she said softly, "step away from the girl." The trap was clear now. If Kael protected Elara, the court would say she had bewitched him. If he surrendered her, she would be dragged away and condemned before anyone questioned Merwin. Kael did not move. His son shook against his chest. His eyes stayed on Elara. "What did you do?" he asked. The question hurt more than any blade. Elara's breath caught. "I did nothing." Rowan screamed again. Merwin lowered her gaze as if the sound wounded her. "The prince worsens when her blood awakens," she said. "Varos warned us. Her interference has bound itself to the poison." Varos stood between two guards, wrists bound in ceremonial silver. He smiled faintly. "Some poisons punish interference, my king." Elara looked at him, then at Merwin. Now she understood. The third key was not only her blood. It was doubt. The poison had been designed to flare whenever Elara's mark reacted, so every attempt to save Rowan would make her look like the weapon killing him. Kael looked down. Even in agony, Rowan's hand had found the edge of Elara's sleeve. The boy was still reaching for her. Kael's voice hardened. "If she is the danger, why does my son still reach for her?" Merwin stepped farther into the chamber. "Because corrupted blood first makes itself necessary. That is how forbidden lines survive. They do not conquer at once. They bind the wounded, the desperate, and the grieving." The council guards murmured. Elara felt the room leaning toward Merwin. Not because they loved her, because fear was easier than truth. Rowan opened his eyes. "Father," he whispered. Kael bent over him. The boy's lips trembled. "Do not let them take her." Silence fell. For one moment, even Merwin could not cover the damage those words had done. Then her expression softened again. "My king, this is now a matter for the Moon Court." Kael's jaw tightened. "Elara remains under my protection. And if the council calls that concealment?" Merwin asked. "Your heir is poisoned. Your royal healer is bound. A moonborn girl with no scent record stands beside the bed while his blood answers hers. If you dismiss judgment now, they will say you chose her over your son." Elara saw the danger. Merwin wanted him angry. A furious king could be called unstable. A grieving father could be cornered. So Elara stepped forward. Every blade lifted higher. Kael's eyes cut to her. "Elara." She ignored the warning and looked at Merwin. "Summon the Moon Court." Kael went still. Merwin's brows lifted. Elara's wrist burned so fiercely tears blurred her sight, but she kept her voice steady. "You want judgment. Then let the relic judge everything. Me, Varos." The poison, the pillow, the collar, the wine, every hand that touched them. Merwin smiled with careful sadness. Brave words from a girl who may not survive judgment. Elara looked at Rowan. His face was grey with pain. If I run, he dies. Then she looked back at Merwin. If I hide, you win. A murmur moved through the chamber. Not approval. Recognition. Even fear could recognize courage when it bled enough. Kael stared at Elara, as if she had stepped toward an execution platform and called it strategy. You do not know what you are asking, he said. I know exactly what your court is, Elara replied. I have lived beneath its laws all my life. His expression changed, just slightly. Elara lowered her voice. You cannot protect me from a law you still obey. The words struck him. He looked at Rowan, then at the guards, then at the burning mark on Elara's wrist. At last, he turned to the council guards. The moon court convenes before dawn. Merwin bowed, as the king commands, but victory rested in the stillness of her mouth. 2 hours before dawn, they brought Elara to the judgment dome. Not in chains. Chains would have made her look innocent. Instead, they left her in the pale blue gown from the banquet, the burn from the collar visible at her throat, her wrist still marked with living silver. The moon court rose around her in circles of black stone. At the center stood the moon mirror. It was older than the moon bowl, Crueler, a slab of silver glass taller than any man, framed in wolf bone and veined with black cracks. It did not reveal bloodline. It revealed betrayal. The eldest counselor lifted a ritual blade. Elara Vane, he said, you are accused of contaminating the royal air, manipulating forbidden blood magic, and endangering the alpha bloodline under the guise of healing. Kael sat on the throne above the court. Rowan slept in a guarded chair beside him, pale and fragile. He had been brought as evidence, not as a child. Evidence. Merwin stood below the dais in white. Varos stood bound in silver on the opposite side, too calm. Place your blood upon the mirror, the counselor said. Elara stepped forward. The mirror reflected nothing. Not her face, not the court, only darkness. She pressed her cut palm to the cold glass. For one breath, nothing happened. Then the mirror screamed. Every torch in the dome turned blue. Images exploded across the silver surface. A nursery, a cradle, a woman with dark hair and moon-pale eyes bleeding across white sheets. Elara Draven, the true Luna. The court gasped. The image sharpened. Merwin stood over the cradle, younger but unmistakable, holding a silver needle above a crying infant's wrist. Beside her stood Varos. He whispered, if we seal the child, no one will scent her. Merwin's voice followed, calm as winter. Then let the real Luna's daughter die nameless. Elara stopped breathing. The infant in the cradle had a small birthmark beneath the left eye. The same mark Elara carried. The same mark no one had ever cared enough to see. Kael rose from the throne, slowly, as if the world had cracked beneath him. The mirror showed Merwin bending over the infant, not killing her, erasing her. Her scent, werewolf, her name. The court erupted. Some screamed witchcraft. Some fell to their knees. Some stared at Elara, as if a ghost had become royal blood before their eyes. Elara stood shaking, her palm still pressed to the mirror. She had expected accusation. She had expected death. She had not expected to watch herself be stolen. Then Rowan screamed behind the throne. The mirror went dark. His body arched, silver veins blazing. Merwin turned to Kael, tears already shining. Choose carefully, my king, she whispered. Save your son. Her gaze slid to Elara. Or save the dead Luna's daughter. The moon court did not know whether to kneel or draw blood. That was how kingdoms broke. Not all at once. First came the silence, then the fear, then the question no one dared speak aloud. If Elara Vane was Celine Draven, daughter of the true Luna, lost moonborn heir, then every law that had buried her was a crime. Every noble who had mocked her had mocked royal blood. Every healer who had dismissed her had helped hide a stolen child. And every breath High Luna Merwin took upon the dais became an insult to the dead. Elara stood beneath the silver-burning candles, her body trembling from the poison she had pulled out of Rowan. The white wolf spirit hovered behind her, like a crown made of winter and wrath. Its presence pressed against the court with ancient judgment. But Elara did not feel like a queen. She felt hollowed out. Her palm was blackened where the poison had entered her. Her throat still burned from the collar. Her wrist still blazed with the crescent crown mark the moon mirror had named as hers. Kael Draven. The name should have felt like a key. Instead, it felt like a grave opening beneath her feet. Kael stood a few steps away, Rowan in his arms. The boy was breathing now, weakly, cleanly, alive. For that, Elara could endure the rest. Merwin recovered before the court did. Of course she did. Power like hers did not shatter simply because truth had spoken. It bent, it changed shape. It searched for another throat to close around. "She is forbidden blood," Merwin said. Her voice carried through the dome, soft and clear. "Think, all of you. The moon mirror has shown what was hidden, yes, but hidden things are not always holy. Some bloodlines are buried because they must be buried." A few nobles lifted their heads. Fear wanted permission. Merwin gave it to them. Look at what followed her arrival. Poison woke. The prince worsened. The Alpha King's judgment faltered. A dead wolf spirit rose in the court. Is that salvation? She turned her eyes to Kael. Or is that exactly what the old prophecies warned us against? Elara's stomach tightened. There it was. Not denial. Reframing. Merwin would not argue that Elara was no one now. She would argue that Elara was too much. Too dangerous. Too ancien. Too uncontrollable to live. Kael stepped forward. Enough. The word cut across the court. Merwin lowered her head, but not in submission. In grief, my king, a man may mistake disaster for destiny. Kael's face hardened. You speak of grief as if you did not manufacture it. A ripple moved through the nobles. Merwin's eyes flashed. Then Rowan stirred in Kael's arms. The boy opened his eyes and looked toward Elara. "Do not let her go," he whispered. Kael looked down at his son. That was when Elara saw the true wound in him. Not rage. Not pride. Guilt. It lived beneath his stillness, raw and newly awakened. He was looking at Rowan, but seeing all the children his laws had never protected. All the scentless bodies counted as mouths instead of lives. All the years Elara had survived outside the palace while his court buried her name under obedience and snow. When Kael looked back at her, his voice was low. "Elara." "No." The word came before he could finish. The court froze again. Elara stepped back from him. Not because she feared him, because something inside her feared how badly she wanted to lean toward the only person in the room powerful enough to shield her. She would not mistake shelter for justice. "Not now. You do not get to say my name as if you found me," she said. Kael went still. Elara's voice shook, but she did not stop. "You found me after the moon bowl bowed, after your son's blood answered mine, after the mirror proved I was worth seeing." His jaw tightened. "I did not know." "No," she said. "You did not ask." The words struck him harder than anger would have. The white wolf behind Elara lowered its head beside her shoulder, silent and watchful. Kael looked at the spirit, then at her throat, still marked by the collar, then at her burned palm. "You are right," he said. The court seemed to breathe in. Alpha Kings did not say such words easily. Not before witnesses. Not to girls they had once allowed the world to erase. Kael lowered Rowan carefully into the arms of the young healer waiting beside the throne. Then he stepped down from the dais. One step, then another, until he stood before Elara. Not above her, before her. "I sign the Scentless decree," he said. A stunned silence fell. Merwin's face sharpened. Kael did not look at her. I signed it after the Western rebellions because I was told scentless bodies could carry false blood, hidden oaths, enemy marks. I was told the law would protect the throne. His eyes stayed on Elara. It protected cowards. No one spoke. It protected men who feared what they could not scent. It protected healers who hid crimes behind ritual. It protected a court that found it easier to erase children than admit bloodline could exist beyond their control. Elara felt something painful move in her chest. Not forgiveness. Never that quickly. But truth had weight. And Kael was finally carrying some of it. Merwin's voice sliced through the silence. "How noble," she said softly. "The king bleeds himself in public while the real danger stands crowned by a dead wolf." Kael turned. The look he gave her made several counselors step back. "The real danger has been wearing white beside my throne." Marvin smiled. "Small. Cold. Then arrest me." Kael's hand moved toward his sword. Elara's blood chilled. Too easy. Merwin wanted spectacle again. Wanted him to seize her in front of the court without formal judgment. Wanted the council split. Wanted every loyalist to claim Kael had been bewitched by the moonborn girl. Elara stepped forward. "No." Kael stopped. Merwin's chaza slid to her. Elara lifted her blackened palm. "Not like that." Her voice grew steadier. "She does not fall by your rage. She falls by proof." Merwin's expression did not change, but her fingers tightened. Elara saw it. A crack. Small. Enough. "The pillow," Elara said. "The collar. The wine. Vara spilt the poison, but Merwin chose the stages. There will be records, temple orders, ward keys." Servants moved from their posts. Someone carried those items. Someone watched. Varos laughed from his silver bonds. "You think paper will save you?" "No," Elara said. The white wolf behind her opened its star-cold eyes. "I think frightened servants remember everything." The young maid from the banquet began to tremble near the lower steps. Elara looked at her. Not with command, with recognition. The girl swallowed, then lowered herself to one knee. "I saw the High Luna's steward take the collar from the temple vault before sunset," she whispered. The court erupted. Another servant knelt. "I carried the prince's cup. Royal healer Varos gave it to me himself." A third voice rose from the healer's bench. The sleep charms on the pillow were never logged in the healing registry. One by one, fear changed sides. Marvin stood very still. Kael's voice filled the dome. "High Luna Merwin will be confined until full judgment." Council guards hesitated, then moved. Too late. Merwin lifted her hand. The silver wards beneath the moon court ignited. A hidden circle flared under Rowan's chair. The boy cried out. Varos smiled. Merwin's calm vanished. "Full judgment," she said. Her eyes burned with hatred now. "I gave this kingdom 20 years of order while men like you mourned and did nothing." The floor split with white light. A passage opened beneath the dais. Merwin seized Rowan from the startled healer and stepped backward into the light. Kael roared her name. Elara moved first, but Merwin's final words stopped the entire court cold. "Come after me, little Luna," she said, holding the prince against her. "Choose your crown, or his heir." Then the light swallowed them, and the moon court fell into chaos. The moon court broke open like a wounded animal. Nobles scattered from the split floor. Guards shouted orders over one another. The silver wards beneath the dais burned so bright that every shadow in the judgment dome twisted backward. Kael reached the edge of the opened passage first. Below, white light swallowed stone steps descending into the old crypts beneath the palace. The moon crypt, a place no living courtier entered without blood permission. Elara reached his side, breathless, her blackened palm still throbbing from Rowan's poison. Kael did not look at her. "She took my son. She wants you angry," Elara said. "She has him, and if you chase her like a father, she will kill him like a queen." That made him turn. His eyes were nearly wolf now, not golden, Not human. Something darker, older, barely chained beneath his skin. Elara. She built every trap from your grief, Elara said. Do not give her the last one. For one terrible heartbeat, she thought he would not hear her. Then Kael closed his eyes, only for a breath. When he opened them again, the monster had not vanished, but it had learned to wait. Then we go together, he said. Elara looked down into the white-lit stairs. No. Kael's face hardened. She stepped before he could command her. This time, you follow me. The words should have been impossible. A scentless girl. A stolen Luna. A healer with poison burning under her skin, telling the Alpha King to follow. But Kael only stared at her for one heartbeat. Then he lowered his head. Lead. The court saw. So did Merwin's loyalists. So did the nobles who had laughed when Elara wore the obedience collar. And for the first time, no one laughed. Elara descended into the moon crypt with the Alpha King at her back. The air below was colder than death. The walls were carved from white stone veined with silver, each surface marked by old lunar names, queens, mothers, warriors, wolves who had ruled beside kings and, in some cases, above them. Their statues lined the passage, faces worn smooth by centuries of candle smoke. Elara felt them watching, not judging, waiting. At the end of the crypt, Merwin stood before an altar of black moonstone. Prince Rowan knelt in front of her, trembling but alive. One of her hands rested on his shoulder. The other held a silver ritual blade against the side of his throat. Varos stood beside her, still bound, but smiling. The silver cuffs around his wrists hung broken. Elara understood then. He had wanted to be seized. He had wanted to be taken close enough to the crypt wards to free himself. Merwin smiled when she saw them. How touching, she said. The lost daughter and the grieving king. The court will adore the tragedy. Kael took one step forward. The blade pressed harder against Rowan's throat. Elara caught Kael's wrist. This time, he stopped. Merwin noticed. Her smile thinned. You have learned quickly, little ghost. My name is Elara, she said. Merwin's eyes went cold. No, your name was supposed to be Silence. The crypt seemed to tighten around that sentence. Merwin lifted her chin, and at last the mask fell. No gentle grief, no silk over steel. Only a woman who had spent 20 years mistaking survival for righteousness. Your mother would have ruined everything, Merwin said. Leora believed old blood should answer to mercy. She would have opened the packs to scentless children, to forbidden lines, to wolfless strays. She would have weakened the throne with compassion and called it justice. Ilara's hands curled. So you murdered her. I preserved the kingdom. You poisoned a child. I corrected a bloodline. Kael's voice cut through the crypt. You put thorns beneath my son's head. Merwin looked at him then, and for the first time her anger turned personal. I sat beside your throne while you mourned a woman who was already dead in every way that mattered. I held your court together. I gave your lords someone to kneel to. I gave this kingdom order while you buried yourself in war and guilt. Kael's face was stone. You gave us rot. Merwin's mouth twisted. Rot holds better than grief. Varos stepped forward, raising both hands. Silver runes crawled up his wrists, alive beneath the skin. The ritual is already joined, he said. The prince's poison, the girl's blood, the old lunar crown. If she claims her blood, he dies. If she saves him, the moonborn line burns out through her. Merwin looked at Elara. There is your choice, crown or heir. Rowan looked back at her. His eyes were wet, but he did not beg. That nearly broke her. Elara stepped closer. Kael caught her arm. Elara. She looked at him. For once, there was no command in his face. Only fear. Not of her. For here. She pulled free gently. All my life, she said, your court taught me that love was ownership, that law was truth, that blood decided worth. I believed none of it. The white wolf spirit rose behind her, vast, silent, crowned in moonfire. The crypt walls began to glow as the old lunar names awakened one by one. Elara looked at Merwin. So I choose neither. She cut her own palm with the edge of Merwin's fallen ward shard. Blood struck the crypt floor. Silver fire burst outward. Varos shouted. The ritual circle cracked. Elara pressed her bleeding hand to the moonstone altar, not to claim the crown, but to break it. Pain tore through her arm. The poison inside Rowan leapt toward her, hungry for the path it had been built to follow. Kael moved then, not in front of her, beside her. His black alpha wolf surged from his shadow, enormous and snarling, standing shoulder to shoulder with her white-crowned spirit. Moonfire and shadow collided. The altar split. Rowan gasped as the poison was ripped from his veins in black threads. Varos screamed as those threads snapped back into the runes he had carved into his own skin. His hands blackened. His voice broke. The healer fell to his knees, clawing at the poison he had made. Merwin tried to drag Rowan backward. The boy bit her hand. She cried out. Kael caught his son and pulled him free. Elara faced Merwin alone. The false Luna stumbled back toward the altar, blood on her white sleeve, rage stripped naked across her face. You are nothing without the blood I hid. Elara's voice was soft. No, I was still myself when you took everything else. The moon mirror appeared behind Merwin, not carried, not summoned by court law, awakened. Its silver surface filled the crypt, reflecting every lie she had worn like a crown. The murdered Luna, the sealed infant, the scentless decree, the pillow, the collar, the wine. Rowan's screams. Each image became a chain of moonlight, one wrapped around Merwin's wrist, then another around her throat. She gasped. Her crown cracked. The delicate silver band split down the center and fell in two pieces at her feet. Above Elara, the white wolf spirit lowered its head. The crypt answered, not with sound, with recognition. When they returned to the moon court, dawn had broken. Merwin was bound in moonlit chains. Varos was carried behind her, alive, ruined, and silent. Prince Rowan walked beside Kael, pale but breathing, and Elara entered last. Not because she was lesser, because every eye had to turn before she chose to step into the light. The court knelt, not all at once. First the servants, then the young healers, then the guards, then the old wolves who remembered Leora. At last, even the nobles lowered their heads. Kael did not command them. Elara did. Without speaking, she walked to the moon dais alone, the place where Merwin had stood for 20 years, the place Elara had been erased from before she learned her own name. The white wolf rose behind her, vast and bright. Kael stepped forward, then stopped, waiting. Elara looked at him. He understood. Slowly, before the entire kingdom, Alpha King Kael Draven went down on one knee, not to claim her, not to choose her, to acknowledge what had been stolen. I failed to see you when the world called you nothing, he said. I will not ask you to belong to me. I will ask only if I am worthy to stand beside you. The court held its breath. Elara looked at the man who had doubted her, protected her, failed her, listened to her, changed because truth had finally cost him something. She did not forgive him completely. Not yet. Some wounds deserved time. But she extended her hand. Stand beside me, Alpha King, she said. Not in front of me. Kael took her hand. The mate bond opened between them, silver and black, not like a chain, like a door. And under the first light of dawn, the girl with no scent claimed the moon that had always known her name.